There's a moment that keeps happening with our sustainability conversations, and that's the silence that comes afterwards. My name is Peter Robey, and I take complex and uncomfortable topics and make them really easy to talk about. I've spent my life working with organisations across every area of industry and science, photographing them, interviewing them, and being in the room where real decisions are being made. These are sustainability leads, marketing teams, brand managers, people who genuinely care about the decisions that their organisations are making. Usually we're producing high-end video, making sure the backgrounds are good and the lighting's great and all of that, and the scripting's there, and I'm conducting the interviews. But today I just thought I'd be unplugged, speaking to you directly from the heart. And lately across the meetings that we've been having, we've been noticing this pattern. Why do sustainability conversations start so well? Why are they so positive and then end in silence? So let's just unpack these conversations that end in silence. I'm not talking about the brands that we're already working with and we do go on to produce content with. That's completely separate. I'm talking about the ones that don't respond. These are the meetings that we have. So for 29 minutes, we have these incredibly positive, genuine discussions about things that are about sustainability and how well they're going to go. The meeting's positive, we finish, and then there's silence. And there's no follow-up. It's just this silence. And I don't know if it's across certain industries. Is it across certain industries? Yes, it is across certain industries that we notice it mostly with. But it's certainly to do with the size of the brand teams that we have to work with. Why do so many brands say that sustainability matters and then freeze when it comes time to communicate it? And I've thought so much about that. That's not a sustainability issue. That's not a reflection of the progress or the story or anything there. It's a communication issue. And this is just right at the heart of what we're noticing across everywhere. Marketing sits right in the middle of this. How do we talk about it without being judged? How do we communicate this and feel confident with how we talk about it while airing our progress to the world? We know the ACCC has a set of guidelines as to how to make a sustainability claim, and I can put a link down there in the comments for how to follow that. Most of the brands we speak to are very familiar with that and are strong with that, and those that are seem to be quite confident in how to make their sustainability claim and turn that into a story. It's the hesitation that comes from not wanting to talk about it that I think is where the issue is. How far is far enough? How do we start? And these are, I think this goes to the heart of what the issue is for marketing. I shouldn't say issue, the challenge it is for marketing. Marketing need to sell something or amplify and talk about something, but they ultimately need to sell something and demonstrate that. Sustainability is talking about decisions that are being made and the progress that we're making. And when the two of them come together, it makes it really difficult to talk about. The communication component is, are we going to be judged? Have we gone far enough? How much is enough to talk about something? And that's where this uncertainty comes from. And it's often easier just to say nothing or to not go any further than to try and figure out where we sit. Marketing's designed to sell, and we've got metrics around how marketing content is able to be measured. And sustainability content is about talking about decisions and how well we're doing with our progress. And there's actually no finite end to that. It can be a little bit here at the beginning of the journey that is being talked about. So putting those two together actually is very difficult to measure when you're trying to apply the same kind of metrics. And when sustainability conversations go silent, it's rarely about progress. It's always about uncertainty and how our measured progress will be seen. And once you start to see that, I think that silence makes a whole lot more sense. I'm reminded of a shoot, of a filming that we just did recently in the middle of last year. It was with a large cereal company, an Aussie cereal company. And I think this is a good example to demonstrate the challenge of trying to measure something. I hadn't realized until we'd done this story how much factory food waste this is. And I'm not I don't want to go down the line of, yes, there's lots of factory food waste. It's quite high, and it's in the tens of percent. And if you can imagine a conveyor belt that's moving through a factory carrying grains and cereals and ingredients like sultanas and whatever that might be on that, things fall off the conveyor. And obviously that in the past, that used to be seen as being waste, and it would be swept up and sent out and put in the bin. This particular cereal company is now putting big funnels underneath their conveyor belts and channeling that food down into a different arm of their business, and it's turning into pet food. As you know, in all pet food, there's fillers, there's grains and rice and other things that are put into that. And so this factory food waste is going into that area. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And so there was very little waste as we were walking around. The place was actually quite clean because of all these funnels that capture all of this. The other area of their factory food waste was when there's an ingredient change. You think about when you go to make a cake. Maybe you've already got some flour, you've already got some ingredients, you might have, again, some sultanas sitting on the shelf. What if you decided, oh, actually, I've got the right ingredients here, but you know what, I want to make a different kind of cake. And that might be because the market has deemed that we're looking for something different, or there's been a change in whatever they're doing. So the cereal company then is sitting on a massive amount of ingredients that they might have had to have purchased 6 months ago, because that's when those ingredients were being harvested. So they had to secure them a certain amount of time ago. Or what if those huge amount of ingredients are actually reaching an expiration date, and the cereal company says, actually, we're not needing to need it. We don't need as many as we thought we did. In the past, that may have gone to landfill, but now those ingredients are being redirected elsewhere. They may be sold, or there's companies like Yumi that are going out and then gathering those and making sure that they're redirected to other areas of industry that can use them and use them fast. Now, does channeling that extra food waste that comes off the conveyor belts and channeling extra ingredients, that's absolutely fantastic. And we all say, oh, that's wonderful. But does that sell more boxes of cereal? Is that something that you can put on the box and say, we've redirected, 20% of our food waste is now being redirected. Look what's happening. I don't know if that necessarily sells more cereal boxes. And there's obviously metrics out there that say a vast number of consumers want to buy cereal, potentially want to buy a product that has been redirected. And but how do you measure that? And how do we talk about it? And is that a great story? And is that a story we want to hear about? And so as we're doing that story, it's really important to bring in metrics about what's been redirected, but it's also really hard to measure that from a pure marketing sense. And so then if we bring that back to our conversation we're having about difficult to measure, I think that marketing metrics are so clear cut. We need to sell this many boxes of cereal, we need to sell this many boxes of something, and there's metrics around the marketing we did actually equals that. But for sustainability, it's a shared value. Yes, I'd like to buy from that company that is currently doing that if they tell me that they're doing that. But if marketing and sustainability aren't quite working together, then that message may not actually get out there, or there may not be budget applied to something like that. And I think it's that shared value of success that is really challenging to measure. And I think it's worth pausing here just to reframe how sustainability content is talked about. Sustainability content, when I think about it, it acts like a testimonial. It's not shouted about, it's not overt branded. The best sustainability content is the least promotional. It's the one where you hear from the heart genuinely about what's going on. And that might be from a scientist within the organization, it's a customer, it might even be a staff member or a new person to the organization, or someone that's actually standing back and saying, hey, look at what this is happening across the board. This little bit of a gain here is when it's scaled up across multiple sites or across multiple tons of something, it actually has a significant, there's significant gains being made there. And I think that's the reframe that we need to look at. And that's why the sustainability content that works the best is the least promotional. I'm reminded of another shoot that we did, and I want to give two contents. Again, one that's, I think there's another one that's really difficult to measure, and I think there's one that's really easy to measure. So let me just jump right in. I'm reminded of another shoot we did, and again, this isn't with a cereal company, but it might be in the same area of grain. Australia produces obviously a huge amount of grain. We send that overseas. What I didn't know until we'd done a story on grain was that the udon noodle, like noodles, they're made from grain. I did not realize that until we'd done this particular story. And there's a huge market across, not a huge market, a huge region across Asia that relies on the udon noodle. Australia's grain has quite a high protein content, more than our competitors do. And so our grains are well sought after around the Asian region because those people are the ones that are eating a higher proponent of udon noodle. And so if the grains that are coming out of Australia have a higher protein content, then obviously our udon noodle is more sought after. I also didn't realize that farmers have the ability to control the protein content of the grain coming out of the ground. And that is linked directly to soil health. So if we can increase the soil health through more regenerative agriculture, that's a hard thing to say, then we get a higher protein content, and that makes us look more attractive. Increasing the protein content though, how do you market that? How do you say, it's one thing to say we've got the best protein value of an udon noodle, but look at what it took in order to get there. It meant that way back here somewhere, an agronomist was involved. The farm had to be reshaped a particular way, maybe to hold water, the surface water to be held on farm a lot longer. Pesticides and fertilizers were looked at. Maybe there's, in one particular farm I remember we went to, there was a 60-meter wide, that's not right, a 20-meter wide particular sprayer was used, and it had little robots all the way across it. And it would only squirt a little bit of pesticide when it actually scanned a particular weed. And it was really quite amazing to see that there was this red line across the ground. It would just do a little bit of a squirt. Now in the past, or maybe on other farms, potentially overseas, they would just spray across the whole farm. And so therefore there's, that will inhibit a lot more of soil health. And I'm thinking, as we work all the way through, before that noodle is then processed, every step is improving the protein content of this grain. How do we talk about that? How do we shape that as being a really positive story? And how do we bring that into a marketing metric to be able to say, this potentially can sell more and therefore meet a metric somewhere downstream in our marketing plans? That's a real measurable challenge, and one that we're coming across all the time. That's an example of something that's quite hard to measure. I'm just thinking of another area that's quite easy to measure. Let me go into an uncomfortable topic. So let's cover mining. Let's cover something in mining. So in gold mining, we need gold. The device that you're watching me on, obviously the circuitry has little gold components all through it. The phone I'm speaking to you on has gold circuitry through it. So we have to agree we need gold. And so in a big open cut gold mine, rocks are dug out of the ground. There's not gold nuggets lying around. The rocks look like rocks. The gold is contained within the rocks, and you would need a truckload of gold to produce a teaspoon of gold, a truckload of rock to produce a teaspoon of gold. That's kind of how it works. I just want to tell you about how this is really easy to measure. So this comes out of the ground, it gets dug up, and it gets put through a ball mill. And so the mill is about the size of your house. It's this giant cylinder, and it turns around, and inside the cylinder are these shot put sized steel balls. And there'd be hundreds of these. And it's quite primitive that this is the process that's going on. So these rocks are fed in at one end with a little bit of water, and as this cylinder turns, these ball bearings are pulverizing the rock inside, and then out the other end comes the slurry, and then that continues on to be processed. And so I won't talk about that end, but it requires huge amounts of energy to keep this ball mill going. And so the mill guy, obviously his responsibility is to keep efficiency with electricity use. It's the biggest area of electricity use on the whole gold mine, is this ball mill turning around. Can you imagine what it's like having different truckloads coming in that might have all different size rocks? Rocks the size of a fridge, rocks the size of a soccer ball. The poor old mill guy's got to manage all these different sizes. He has to turn the mill differently based on the sizes that come in. He might have to stop the mill, take the ball bearings out, and put a different size shot put in if he has different size rocks. Imagine if the rocks are all the same size. And so there is a blasting company that is able to make sure that when rock is blasted, it blasts to the same size. And I learnt this a very long time ago. And now whenever I'm on a mine site, and I've spent 3 decades on mine sites, I'm always looking at the size of rocks. It's called fragmentation. I'm always looking at the rocks that come out of the ground. So where am I going with this? After a blast, all the rocks look about the same size. It makes it really, and they've been deliberately designed to be the same size. And that's geologists and smart cookie engineers that are designing the blast a particular way. That's a certain amount of bomb juice that's been designed to blast all of that rock in a particular way. And it's amazing they can blast half a landslide, kaboom, and the rocks all end up the same size. It's optimal because that's the easiest size to be able to lift by excavators. It's the easiest size for trucks to not puncture their tires and to be able to move it up to the mill. But more importantly, it keeps the mill guy happy. And so when you see a truck going up that all has the same size fragmentation, that keeps the mill guy happy. It means then that his efficiency is absolutely spot on. And in mining, when they're working to such huge scales, small percentages of gain in electricity and efficiency absolutely matter. And I absolutely genuinely believe there's a lot of areas of mining that are actually far more sustainable than people think. And it just excites me that when I'm at a mine site or when I'm at a quarry, anywhere in the world, I often look to see what's the fragmentation. Or if I'm speaking to the mill guy, I'll say, mate, how's the fragmentation today? It makes me feel important, but it actually starts a conversation, and then we can talk about efficiencies and how well that is. And it means he's not staying late, he's getting home in the afternoon earlier. There's lots of gains to that. So when talking about a sustainability issue there, that is really easy to measure. We have done this back up here and spent a lot of money back up here, but at the other end, we have got efficiencies and gains with our equipment and with our energy and electricity. What are we losing by not talking about what we're doing? It may not just be a measured output by we're able to sell this many widgets or cereal boxes or pieces of gold further down. That may not be it. Often a lot of the content we're producing covers recruitment, covers other areas within the chain of what you're doing. And we know that future hires, we know that future hires and recruitment is really important. There are genuinely people that want to come work for organizations who are doing more sustainable things than the person next door. It's really important to talk about what you're doing. Because if you don't, how will anyone else know about it? It's really important to progress for industry. A lot of the content we're producing, sometimes we're asked, hey, this is just about showing industry what we're doing. We want to help progress something within industry. And by collectively, that will improve. It might be about a product, or a way of producing the product. It might just be by talking about, say, those funnels that I was referring to underneath conveyor belts. It might be actually saying, look at what we've done. It was actually pretty simple to implement. Why doesn't everybody do this? This could make a big difference. And here's what I've learned. Most organizations are doing far more than they realize on sustainability. The progress is really quite huge. If only organizations are able to sit in the dozens of meetings that I have every week to see across the board in every industry, there's actually a lot of gain being made and people are genuinely passionate about what they're doing. So many of the brands we speak to are so caught up in their day-to-day that they don't know what the industry next door is doing. And if only they knew that the person next door has actually had the same amount of effort and energy and everything else required in order to pursue their sustainability story. But collectively, there's so much hope. And I genuinely want to tell all of these stories that have been done. It's just, whether it's speaking to a staff member out on the floor of a factory, or whether it's speaking to someone who's a sustainability lead that said, hey, we had to bring in a bunch of scientists and look at what we're doing, or look at the work that we're doing through our member university organizations that we've partnered with. across the board, there is just so much hope and so much being done. And I just genuinely don't think that there's room to not talk about it. It's the measure. And so I'd like people to be thinking about going out really confidently and having clarity around this uncertainty. And really to remember that the two systems that previously weren't designed to be able to talk together now actually do. And I do believe that they can talk together. Marketing metrics about needing to sell something and sustainability about needing to improve, those stories can sit side by side and we can talk about both together. There is a way to weave both in together. Even in a very short form content, even if it is only for 40 seconds with 1.5 speakers, even if it is in a 2-minute piece that goes out, there is an absolute way to do that. Or it might be just having a third party person speak for 59 seconds to give you your LinkedIn piece. There is a way for marketing metrics and sustainability improvements content to sit side by side. And that's why I genuinely feel that it's so important to not have that silence anymore, not to have that uncertainty. There is a big cost to not telling that story. So the question isn't about whether sustainability is worth talking about. The question is whether staying silent is costing us more than we think.